This is the Fujifilm GFX 50R, the most affordable medium format camera I've used. It is a massive sensor that should produce better image quality than full frame competitors. $4,500 US isn't that bad of a price, and the lenses for it, unlike the Hasselblad, are actually pretty impressive. We took a family trip to Barcelona and I made it just my main camera, my walking around camera. So this isn't the conventional type of review we do where we scrutinize every technical aspect of something. I wanted to see how the camera performed in just real life, in the real world. By the way, I'm here in Fort Griswold in Groton, Connecticut, where Benedict Arnold, literally Benedict Arnold, commanding a bunch of British troops, attacked the town of New London. The fort was here to defend it, but because Benedict Arnold knew the layout of the fort, he managed to sneak his ships in where the guns couldn't see him and take over the fort. When the officer in charge of the fort surrendered, he handed his sword hilt first to the British commanding officer. The British commanding officer accepted his surrender, took his sword, and stabbed him right in the chest with it. What a dick. Benedict Arnold then went on to burn down the entire town of New London. Benedict Arnold, that guy sucks. Much like Benedict Arnold, this camera sucks at some things. It's definitely not a sports camera. It doesn't really have continuous focus. It only has contrast detect AF, no phase detect AF, so it doesn't do good at tracking subjects. It's not a video camera. It only has 1080 30 frames per second. But if you complain about that stuff, you're not the audience for this camera. This isn't going to be somebody's general purpose one camera that does everything. This is a camera that people would add to their collection of existing cameras and pull out only in specialized scenarios. So what are those scenarios? I think it's a great landscape camera. Fuji's lens selection is really good, but we kind of do need to see some more lenses. Like, they don't have a good super wide zoom. There are no good astrophotography lenses right now. So take a look at the lens selection and see if it fits your needs as a landscape photographer before you invest. I also think it's a decent walking around camera if you want that sort of medium format quality and you don't mind the heft. Are you going to see a huge difference in image quality from a comparable full frame camera? No, maybe not. But I do think the Fujifilm GFX system is a good system to invest in, because soon the GFX 100 will be here with 100 megapixels and a stabilized sensor, and it should address all the concerns that we had about this one. That's not my dog, it's just kind of wandering around. Let's talk about the design. It's a big camera, but it's not big for medium format, but it's still bigger than its Hasselblad cousin. What I love about it is the rangefinder design. I love that the viewfinder is off to the side like this, because when I hold it up to my eye, it doesn't bump against my nose. I always thought digital cameras should use this rangefinder design, unless it's something designed for sports, maybe then you want it lined up with the lens. But this is what I would want to use for just daily travel type stuff. But still, holding it in my hand, it doesn't give me the joy that the Fujifilm X-T3 does. For one, look at that grip. The grip is almost non-existent, and as I'm holding on to it, it might be okay for a small APS-C camera, but it's not okay for these big, huge medium format lenses. They're all kind of big and heavy, and it just doesn't feel like it has any balance. My pinky even kind of slips beneath the bottom of it. It does have a tilty screen, which I like, but the tilty screen is huge and kind of clunky, and I don't know why it can't be flatter like every other tilty screen. It's also kind of small compared to the overall size of the back of the camera. And look at those buttons. They're flat and almost completely flush, and I just wish they'd make them a little fatter. Okay, it's small for a medium format camera, but it's still not small. Like, everybody noticed it right away when I was carrying it, and everybody felt like commenting on it. And Barcelona in particular has just rampant crime right now. So what I really needed was a camera that was small and discreet, and well, this just isn't it. I love Fuji designs overall, but in this case I really like the design of the Hasselblad X1D much better. That doesn't mean I love the Hasselblad more. The Hasselblad's much more expensive and the lenses aren't nearly as powerful. I just prefer the design. It does have eye detect autofocus, and it kind of works, but when I tried it with the 110mm lens, the portrait lens, which is equivalent to an 85mm f1.4 on full frame, it focused on the brow, just consistently, because the autofocus points are kind of big. It did a good job of detecting the eye, but the fact that it didn't nail focus was a problem. The focusing points just need to be smaller and more precise. So you could manually focus for your portraits, but that's a slow and laborious process. If that sounds okay to you, go for it, but for me, it's not the right choice. Okay, but what about all those medium format benefits? Now, you do have a bigger sensor. You get about 30% more surface area with this if you don't care about the aspect ratio, if you're going to use the entire sensor to produce your final image. But there are a couple of catches. If you plan to crop it to the standard aspect ratio of a 35mm camera, then the surface area differences are almost gone and all the image quality differences are almost gone. But if you plan to crop it to 8x10, then you actually get about 50% more surface area, and that's pretty significant. But what about low light performance? Medium format should excel there. It kind of should, except that this is not a stabilized camera, and even the lenses aren't stabilized except for one telephoto lens. And that means that Chelsea, with her A7R III, a full frame camera that is stabilized, in the dark churches of Barcelona, she was getting cleaner, sharper shots, because I had to use a shutter speed of 1/100th of a second, while she was able to use a shutter speed of like 1/4 of a second. So she was at a much lower ISO, more than overcoming the limitations of the smaller sensor. Let's compare it to the competitors. The biggest one is the GFX 50S, another Fuji camera that takes all the same lenses and is just like a few $100s more expensive. That is an SLR style camera, so pick it based more on the design than anything else. This is quite a bit smaller, even though it's still huge, so if you care at all about size, you might prefer the GFX 50R. I definitely prefer this over the 50S. How does it compare to the Hasselblad X1D? The X1D is a more stylish and fun camera, but the X1D has some pretty serious limitations, like the lenses are not nearly as powerful as the Fuji lenses. So if you care about image quality, you're gonna have to get the Fuji. If you care about the design or the Hasselblad brand name, then maybe you should get the Hassi instead. And what about the Sony A7R III? As you can see, it's a full frame camera, but it's quite a bit smaller. It also has many more lenses, and honestly, the A7R III is gonna be the better overall camera. You can shoot 4K video with it, you can shoot sports, the eye detect autofocus works way better than it does on this camera. It's more versatile and it's less expensive too, but you're not getting this because you just want some Sony. The Fuji is a specialized camera. It's something different. It's a rangefinder, it's medium format, and if those things appeal to you, even if they don't have technical merit, that's when you should get the GFX 50R. Give me a like and subscribe to see more photography reviews, tutorials, and our live show every Thursday at 5. If you have follow-up questions about the 50R, write them down below. I'd be happy to respond. And don't forget, if you actually want to improve your photography, the best way to do it is with our book, Stunning Digital Photography. And you know what? If you're thinking about buying a $4,500 medium format camera, you can probably afford our art and science video training series, which goes much deeper than anything does on YouTube. I'm Tony Northup, and remember, Benedict Arnold. Bye.